Welcome to this explainer. Okay, today we are going to uncover an absolute 5,000-year-old secret. We're looking at the invisible blueprint of our daily lives, a blueprint forged by a civilization that the world entirely forgot about. If you've ever wondered where the literal foundations of modern human society actually come from, well, you are in exactly the right place. Let's get right into it.
60. I just want you to think for a second about the 60 seconds in your minute and the 60 minutes in your hour. We take this completely for granted every single day, right?
Okay, let's dive into this, because, you didn't choose those numbers. Someone chose them for you roughly 5,000 years ago. See, the Sumerians didn't count on 10 fingers like we usually do. Instead, they counted the 12 finger segments across 4 fingers, using their thumb, and then they multiplied that by the 5 fingers on their other hand. 12 times 5 is 60. That genius mathematical system is the exact reason we track time this way today, and it's why we have 360-degree angles. It's totally wild.
Part 1. Taming Unpredictable Rivers.
So, to understand how they achieved all this, we need to transition back 5,000 years to the hostile, sun-scorched floodplains of southern Mesopotamia. While the Nile gave the Egyptians predictable, scheduled flooding, for the Sumerians, the Tigris and Euphrates rivers were just violently volatile. They would surge without warning, change course, and literally erase entire villages. This brutal cycle of extreme drought and catastrophic flooding forced the Sumerians into an ultimate struggle for survival.
Because of that harsh landscape, the very first cities weren't born out of sudden ambition. They were born from pure necessity. To tame those rivers, you had to dig massive canal networks, and that required organizing thousands of laborers. You had to manage up to 300 square kilometers of crops. To pull that off, authority became centralized in massive, step pyramid structures called ziggurats, where priests acted as administrators just to keep the entire fragile system alive.
Part 2. Bureaucracy births the alphabet. And this brilliantly illustrates how necessity breeds invention. As settlements grew into massive cities like Uruk, with unprecedented populations of up to 80,000 people, you could no longer just rely on human memory for debts and taxes. At first, they used physical clay tokens for accounting. Then, that evolved into pressing pictures, pictograms, into clay. But finally, they made a massive leap to cuneiform, where wedge-shaped symbols represented actual phonetic sounds. The world's first phonetic writing system wasn't invented to write poetry. It was invented by bureaucrats to track inventory, pressed right into soft clay with a reed stylus.
And think about how incredibly durable this was. Because they used fired clay, these records became essentially indestructible. Cuneiform was the dominant writing system for over 3,000 consecutive years. That is twice as long as the time from the fall of Rome to today. Archaeologists have recovered over 1 million of these tablets. It was just a flawless system to hold everyone accountable.
Part 3. Medicine, Math, and Beer.
Once writing and societal stability were actually established, the sheer volume of daily innovations the Sumerians produced was astonishing. We're talking rapid-fire foundational tech here. They gave us the wheel, initially for heavy rollers, and then chariots, the plow, which completely revolutionized farming, sailboats turning rivers into highways, arches and columns, the very first legal codes centuries before Hammurabi. They even invented soap and formal schools. Our modern education systems trace directly back to elite Sumerian boys sitting and studying on clay tablets.
Oh, and we absolutely cannot forget this one. They invented beer. They even had a goddess dedicated to it named Ninkasi. The oldest known beer recipe is literally a poetic hymn dedicated to her for fermenting barley. They drank this thick, unfiltered brew through long reed straws from communal jars. And honestly, because making it involved boiling water, it was likely way safer to drink than the city water.
What's truly fascinating, though, is how they approached medicine. They had a dual system operating in perfect parallel. On one side, the Asu, the physician, treated the physical body with incredibly advanced herbal salves 2,000 years before Hippocrates. On the other side, the Ashupu, the exorcist, treated the spiritual cause, which they believed were demons or angry gods. To the Sumerian mind, the physical and the supernatural were just one fabric. You couldn't treat the fever without also treating the spirit.
Part 4. The first lyric voice.
But let's pivot from their technological triumphs to their profound and sometimes incredibly dark human element. Because the civilization we inherited from them wasn't always humane. In the 1920s, archaeologists uncovered the Great Death Pit of Ur. They found 74 sacrificed attendants lying beside Queen Puabi in absolute ceremonial order. And while we once thought they took poison voluntarily, recent CT scans show something much more brutal. Many were actually killed with blunt force trauma to ensure they accompanied their royals into the afterlife. It really shows the brutal, totalizing effectiveness of their institutions.
From these individual city-states, let's look at how this builds into an empire. For centuries, these cities fought each other. Before Sargon of Akkad, war was just between rival cities. But Sargon created the world's first multi-ethnic empire. He revolutionized warfare with a flexible army of archers, pushed across regions, and forced two different peoples and two different languages together under one system.
But, you can't unite an empire with just a sword. Sargon installed his daughter, Enheduanna, as high priestess to bridge the cultural gap, and she is incredibly important. She is the first named author in all of human history to write in the first person. Before her, writing was just for taxes or hymns written by committee. Enheduanna invented the very concept that an individual's inner, personal experience was worth recording.
Just listen to these words. I, who once sat triumphant, was driven from my sanctuary. The light scorched me. This isn't a ledger of barley. This is raw human emotion. This is the birth of the lyric voice. Every diary, every memoir, every single poem that begins with the word I traces its entire lineage back to this woman in southern Mesopotamia.
Part 5. A Forgotten Foundation.
As is the case with all great empires, we inevitably reach a tragic collapse. It was a classic domino effect. Centralized power became brittle. Sargon's grandson arrogantly claimed to be a living god. Then came severe drought. Gutian mountain tribes raided their plains and let the canals decay. Over-irrigation literally poisoned their fertile soil with salt. And finally, in 2004 BC, the Elamites sacked the great city of Ur. The Sumerians ceased to exist as a political entity, and their culture was gradually absorbed by the Babylonians and others.
So, the crucial point is this. Unlike the Egyptians, who built with stone, the Sumerians built their massive cities with mud brick. When left unmaintained, they literally dissolved back into the desert landscape. They vanished from human memory so completely that for 4,000 years, no one on Earth even knew they had existed. It wasn't until 19th century archaeologists started digging that we realized an entire world lay beneath the sand.
Which leaves us with this final, profound question to consider. Every time you check a clock, measure an angle, or sign your name, you are using an immortal Sumerian idea. We live inside their invisible architecture today. So it makes you wonder, in another 5,000 years, whose invisible architecture will we be? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep asking questions, and I'll catch you next time.